Hello everyone, Yali Madad. My name is Shanil. I'm your host today, and welcome back to the third and final webinar of the Australian and New Zealand Study Abroad, a guidance series. So this webinar, as you may already know, is being conducted and collaborated by Aga Khan Education Board for Pakistan and Aga Khan Education Board for Australia and New Zealand.
Yalamed everyone, my name is Nazim. I'll also be hosting alongside with Shanil and want to welcome you to the webinar 3, which is called Career Horizons Panel Discussion.
All right, so in webinar 1, as you may remember, we covered the Australian and New Zealand tertiary post-secondary landscape. The speakers in the webinar 1 were Nazim and Shehzad, who explained the ANZ qualification framework, how to prepare for your studies, the cost of studying, the admission requirements, and also how to apply to a tertiary institution.
In webinar 2, we looked at living and settling in Australia and New Zealand, or ANZ. We had Anish Lakhani, who spoke about settling into both countries, the cost of living, finding a job, and the skills required as part of the migration occupation skilled list. In the current webinar, we will conduct a live interview of different professionals who have established themselves in Australia and New Zealand after migrating from Pakistan.
So today we have with us four great speakers. Number one, the first speaker is Zainab Akhtar. Zainab is a registered nurse and an accredited organizer. She currently works as a national manager for the Diploma of Nursing program at Australian Catholic University College ACUC. Zainab completed a Diploma of Nursing from Aga Khan School of Nursing, Karachi, Pakistan, and Bachelor's of Arts from Karachi University in 2003. She came to Australia, Melbourne, in February 2007 with her husband on a student visa. She completed her diploma in community welfare services from Cambridge College, Melbourne, then completed a master's in nursing by coursework chronic health and palliative care from the University of Queensland. Later, she completed her honors in nursing from Monash University and is currently undertaking her PhD in nursing from La Trobe University. The second speaker that we have with us today is Shehzad Lakhani, who is an application sales engineer supplying products and services to railway industry. He has a bachelor's degree in mechatronics engineering honors. Welcome, Zainab and Shehzad.
We also have with us today Shoaib Ali Khan, who is currently working in IT. Shoaib came to Australia for a master's in IT in 2006 and has over 14 years of experience in open source technology with a strong development background and extensive commercial experience. And finally, we have Hussein Sohani, who is currently working as a senior management accountant for listed company deals in information technology and services. Hussein migrated to Auckland, New Zealand in 2011, and since then he has obtained his Master of Commerce, Chartered Accountant CA for Australia and New Zealand, and is a fellow member of Association of Chartered Accountants CA ANZ. Welcome, Shoaib and Hussein. So thank you all for joining us and taking out the time to share your journey and answer some questions. The first question that we would like to know is all about the origin story. So Shehzad, we'll start with you. How did you go about the process of migrating to Australia? What were some of the resources you looked at, the people that you contacted, and some of the research that you may have undertaken?
That's a great question, Nazim. And I just want to start by, addressing everyone. So Yali everyone. So look, in regards to the question, so when I started, so I basically started off with two objectives in mind. One was to pursue a career in engineering, and secondly to study abroad just for the exposure, right? So at the time, I wasn't sure about settling down abroad, as it was a big step, to be away from family and living independently. So I thought I might try to study in a country near Pakistan, and in a university that was not too expensive, right? So which meant that I wasn't looking at countries like Australia or America, Canada, but I was more focused towards Singapore and Malaysia. So then I was researching different universities, and I actually came across Monash University, which is one of the bigger universities in Australia, and they had a campus in Malaysia. So I thought, Australian university near home, so why not? So it really fit my criteria well at the time. Um, so now that I had my first preference of the university selected, I then started looking at courses they were offering in engineering, and I came across this field called mechatronics engineering, which which to be honest, at that time it sounded really cool, right? So then I started reading more about this field. What is it all about, and what is the application in the market? So when I was doing my research, so I came across and I found out that this particular field was dealing more with automation and robotics. So I thought, industries are always looking at, especially manufacturing industries are always looking at automating their manufacturing process, so there will always be scope in this. So in summary, this was my course selection criteria. So just to put a summary, in summary, basically. Um, all so all the research that I did for the university selection and the course selection. So so Google was my best friend, right? There's just so much information out there. Um, so basically I relied more on self research than reaching out to people or any available resources. But honestly, I didn't know who to reach out at the time. Um, so and in regards to the course application, so I actually went onto the university's website, and I basically followed all the steps they had listed to apply to that course. I gathered all my documents, and I basically applied online. um, I can't remember how long it took to get the offer from the university, but in parallel I was applying to other universities as well as a backup option.
Sorry, Shazad, I think we might have lost you towards the end, but I think you sort of encompassed what you sort of shared as to, your journey was a little bit different to what I think the others was sort of going or trending towards, where you were going to, a country, not so much Australia and New Zealand, but to another country altogether. So
That's
thanks for
right.
sharing that. Zeno, again, I understand like is your process is a little bit different because you were coming more to study in Australia and more specifically Melbourne as a student. So what was the process that you took to apply to the course that you were interested in studying?
Thank you, Nazim. I totally agree. I've got a whole different perspective the way I applied as compared to Shazad. So I was lucky in the sense that in 2006, I started working with a consultancy firm. So the consultancy was actually offering to support students to travel to Australia on student visa or migration, basically. So I was working in that firm at the time, and there was a lot of talk about Australia. During that time, we were more focused as nurses. We always want to go out and explore ourselves. So my focus was going to United States rather than going to Australia. But as soon as I started working in that consultancy firm, I started learning about the culture, the environment, the growth prospect for myself and my family. So I was married at that time, and I thought, look, it's best to explore. I Unlike Shazal, I didn't do any research. I just jumped in, and I thought, look, I just need to do it. So I explored what courses I can do. If I'm a nurse by background, I looked into some nurses program courses, but I did my initial nursing registration in Pakistan. Doing nursing in Australia is quite expensive, so I thought something that is reasonable that I can afford. Um, I looked into certain courses at that time. I'm talking about 2006. At that time, diploma courses were quite okay in regards to the student visa process. So I explored a diploma of community welfare service course, which could give me a lead towards working in the community. So I thought it's quite relevant to nursing as well. So I applied for Diploma of Community Welfare Services, and it took me 3 months' time. The whole process took 3 months' time by going through, writing the SOPs, completing the application process, looking into the financial aspects, and then the application to submit. It took further 3 months' time to receive the response. During that time, again, it was a crazy time when Australian immigration was supporting the student visas. So I get my response in 3 months' time, and we decided to then come to Australia, Melbourne, in 2007, and I continued to study Diploma of Community Welfare Services for 2 years.
Thanks very much, Zainab. It's interesting to see that, the turnaround time for each sort of process that you took was 3 months, which I think for some is quite lengthy, and in some instances it could be considered to be quite quick. What about yourself, Hussein? I mean, you sort of moved to Auckland, New Zealand, so it's a different kettle of fish altogether, or maybe something similar. Would you be able to share us your experience or your journey in that respect?
Sure, Nazim. I'll share my experience. Before moving to New Zealand, I was already a qualified accountant, and I was very clear in my mind that if I moved abroad or to get an international exposure, I don't want to start my studies for 3 or 4 years again. So what I've decided is to research and to understand how it's like I basically started contacting different people who are already settled overseas, and also consult with different consultancy firm, and figured out that CA body in New Zealand, they are happy to grant me a provisional membership of CA based on my qualification at that time. So, in that regard, to do that, to get a provisional membership, I just need to do a tax and law papers. So for me, because I was very clear that I don't have to start studying for 3 or 4 years, I said, okay, this is where I need to pursue. And what I did is I researched about the university where I can go to do these courses. So I enrolled myself in one of the uni through one consultancy firm, and I enrolled for a diploma program where I can go with these papers and get my provisional membership of CA. So this is how I end up in Auckland, New Zealand.
So again, a very different process, considering that you'd already completed studies or your qualifications overseas and had contacted people before coming to New Zealand. What about yourself, Lucky Last Shoaib, with this particular question?
First, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity. And since the topic of the migration and the student visa, I want to thank family and the friends who helped me out throughout the journey. So my story starting is similar because I never intended to come to Australia. I wanted to go overseas anywhere, and I couldn't afford much. So in those days, Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, Germany, used to do a free education for international students. The only thing was the course was in native language, which was, Deutsche or German or things like that. So actually, I went through the whole process where I learned German, applied for the university, and there was some political situation back in 2006. So then I had no option but to go for alternative. And then I was looking for alternative. I went to the agent and he said, hey, Australia is, very high in a student visa. You can get it quickly and you can go. Okay, perfect. So that's pretty much it. I got diverted toward Australia. The course was offered by the agent, of course, was more for the diploma courses. So I did my bachelor's in computer science back in Pakistan. And I did a couple of years of, software engineering jobs there too. So then it didn't fit very well that, hey, I've done my bachelor's back home and now I'm going in diploma courses. Doesn't fit well. But at the same time, and I didn't have enough money too. So I took a gamble. with all the wrong information in my hand, that I'll be able to sustain the fees and also be able to sustain myself when I will go there on with a job. So with all the wrong information at hand, I decided to do master's degree from the university. I roughly had understanding that, hey, I need couple of months of money enough to sustain myself, and then enough money to maybe pay for the first semester, and then I'll be my fine. So so you can imagine I started my journey with all the wrong information and the limited research, and yeah, that was my journey, which I would never recommend anybody to do that.
Thanks very much, Rod, for sharing that. It's interesting to say that you wouldn't recommend that to anyone. We'll come back to you on another specific question. Chanel, over to you.
All right. So the next question would be about the education. So I just want to know if you have pursued any further education after coming to Australia, maybe. So we'll start with Zainab.
Thank you, Chanel. So, of course, as I mentioned, that I did my nursing from Pakistan, and my end goal was to continue my profession, even though if when I come to Melbourne, but of course, it wasn't doable at the time financially, so I had to pick up diploma of community welfare services. But while I was doing my diploma, I also started studying English. So for nurses, nurses has to give either IELTS or OET. There is certain requirement that you have to accomplish in order to apply for the registration in Melbourne. So I started studying OET. I started taking those classes while I was doing my diploma of community welfare services. So as soon as I finished that, I set for the test, and luckily I got through the test and I applied for my registration. So when I finished my registration process, there was one last requirement from the nursing regulatory body was to complete a 3 months transition program. During those days, it was $12,000 course for 3 months. So I have to basically do that course in order to finally get my registration. So I did that transition course, became a registered nurse, worked in a public hospital. While I was doing that, I started to feel like I want to do something in education because, again, that was another passion that I had. So I had to do a Cert 4 training and assessment course, which is the requirement of teaching in the vocational sector here in Australia. After that, I continued studying in nursing, as you heard about my introduction, that I then did my master's in nursing and then my honors, and currently I'm enrolled into my PhD.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing this. Hussein, what about you? Did you obtain any further education?
Yes, basically after completing that 1 year diploma program where I given that tax and law paper, I pursue for CA. And for this, you have to enroll yourself for a provisional member. And once you are a provisional member, then you have to give certain papers to become a full member of that body. And you have to complete like 2 years of work experience related to the same profession and under one mentor. So this is what I did to get a full membership of chartered accountancy body in New Zealand. So this is what I did and pursued my goal.
Right. Shoaib, would you like to add something?
Sure. One good advantage of coming to, I'm not sure about New Zealand, but Australia, is that you get a HEX, which is basically you don't have to pay for your education fee upfront if you're a citizen. You have to pay once you finish your degree and stuff like that. So it was very attractive. So I couldn't resist. So I did a bit of study in gene sequencing, bioinformatics. So yeah, that was my kind of second master, which I never managed to finish. Yes.
Right. And lastly, Shazad, any further education that you obtained?
Okay, so I only did my bachelor's degree in engineering, and essentially the field that I'm currently working in. So work experience matters more, but my education definitely became a base to better understand how products are engineered and how they work. So it makes it easier for me to understand different products and offer tailored solution for specific, custom applications or requirements. So I didn't feel the need to go further.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. I believe that this gives us a good idea of what kind of other certifications that one must do if one is in Australia and pursuing their post-secondary education. Nazim, over to you for the third question.
Thanks, Shannon. So the third question we have is, I think some of you have already alluded to this a little bit, but your journey in settling into Australia and New Zealand, what were some of the struggles that you faced, and how did you overcome these? I think that's something that I think a lot of people would be very interested and keen to know about. And we'll start off with our person from New Zealand. We'll start off with Hussein.
Oh, thank you, Nazim. Yes, I mean, it's a really interesting question, struggle, right? So, yes, definitely when you are moving to a new place, to a new country where you don't know even a single person here, you definitely struggle, and that's normal. But and I also face similar kind of challenges in that 1 year of my student life, and then 2 years of my work life, and then the whole residency process. But what I just want to highlight that I want to share what I believe was a real struggle for me is when I moved here in Auckland. I was in the impression that because I was already a qualified accountant, I can get easily my desired job in the same field. Even in my student life, at least I can get uh, same desired job in same field. That was my expectation when, and definitely it didn't happen. Like I couldn't get my desired job in the same profession. So that was a very big challenge, and that's the point where I struggled mostly. But definitely, how I overcome this is by accepting my situation that it's a new country. You have to start from scratch, and this is what I technically did. I started from scratch, and I'm happy that I continue working towards. And now I'm happy that I made it.
Thanks very much for saying. So it sounds like it's more about being persistent and not giving up. It's a matter of keep going at it, keep working at it, and then hopefully getting the rewards at the end of the tunnel.
True.
What about yourself, Shoaib?
Um, so like I said, my journey started with not having enough research and information done. So there's only one way, which is a lot of struggle. So I think pretty much it's a standard student life process where you struggle, and then hopefully if everything falls in place, then you get to what you wanted here for. So yeah, not enough money, have to do anything and everything to survive on. Yeah, I took any job, anything I can do, from toilet cleaning to delivery to gas station to overnight job to anything which I can get hands off. So the struggle basically starts from the time you land. My journey was very interesting because when I landed in Australia, I knew nobody. I had this one chit which had an address there that, okay, you go there and you'll be get a place to sleep. When I turned up there were 11 people were already there in that 1.5 bedroom apartment. So you can imagine how I started. So I think the important piece here is that, I mean, you can always talk about struggle and you can always look back. I think it's a very humbling journey. But I think it's more about what you need to basically come towards the other side. And I think one thing which I can definitely say is, like you said, persistence, adaptability is the another one. And I think you have to make sure that there's only one thing you want, is what you're here for. There's no going back. I think that was a very important thing, because I've seen students across me, right, who came along with me. Some went back, some couldn't sustain it. So I think that's very important, that you need to be mentally strong, ready to be, face anything, be prepared. Strong in faith. I think the faith will give you the biggest, support in your lowest time. And never give up. Never give up. It's not an easy journey. It's a difficult one, but it's definitely something you can surmount for sure with your persistence.
Thanks very much, Shoaib. So again, it sounds like not only not giving up, but also trying to be adaptable. That's something that I really like what you said. That making sure that you can adapt to the situation and as you said, try and find a job in anywhere that you can. And I remember at the last webinar when Anish came and we had the current international students who shared their experience and spoke about that. It doesn't matter what job you're doing; it's a matter of getting through this tough period, irrespective of whichever country you go to, you'll face those initial struggles, but then keep persevering and then continue on to sort of get to that end goal. So, what about yourself, Shazad?
Okay. Yeah, look, so my journey, it was a really rough journey for sure. But I was, okay at the end with a bit of luck and lots of researching. But maybe I wanted to share my story, for my journey from studying in Malaysia and then coming to Australia, because it was quite a difficult journey. So I studied in Malaysia, and I graduated from there, from Monash. And initially I thought I would get some work experience in Malaysia, but then I found out that it was extremely difficult to sort out work visas, and but I still tried, but nothing happened there. But meanwhile, because I had graduated from an Australian university, I was actually eligible to get a graduate visa to go to Australia and go and look for work. So I applied, while I was still in Malaysia. And I think it took a couple of months to actually get it, but it came through at the end. And I finally then took off to Australia, and I think that visa was about 1.5 years, the validity of the visa. But I was really lucky that I had family friends living in Sydney, and they let me stay with them for a bit while I looked for work. Um, and honestly, I really struggled to find work, and I realized that in Australia, and generally speaking, Australian companies don't really hire you if you don't have any Australian local work experience, and especially when you're a graduate, right? So that was really tough. And then at the same time, I was staying with my family friends for some time, and I started to feel guilty, and I really wanted to move out, right, as soon as possible. So my family friends actually helped me to get a job in a restaurant, um, and which actually helped me to move out and get my own rented place, right? So I had never worked in a restaurant before, so I was going through a lot of emotions, right? And it wasn't easy to adjust at first, but eventually, I accepted it, and and then I wanted to move forward with the approach, that whatever it takes, I don't want to fail, So that was a big motivation or a driving force for me. Uh, and you know what? After a while, I started enjoying the job. The feeling of being independent was just great, for me. It also gave me this confidence that I didn't experience before. So it was a really great feeling. Um, and that same restaurant job actually helped me to secure interviews because I now had Australian work experience. It didn't matter which field or where, but I had local Australian work experience. So so that was one thing. Then the next challenge was working rights, because everybody wanted someone with a permanent residency or a citizenship status, which I didn't have either. So after applying and applying constantly, meeting up with various recruiters, talking on the phone every day with someone or the other, and consistently following up with them, I was just lucky that I was able to secure a job at the end as an internal sales engineer. So let's say I got really really lucky, right? Um, and then so I worked for that company for a year till my visa was close to expiring. that I'm talking about, that 1.5 year graduate visa. So the company was supposed to sponsor my visa to stay on, but they found out that they couldn't justify to immigration on why they would need to sponsor me when they could find local talent which was available in the market with a PR or a citizenship. So that's a criteria that companies do have to deal with, so it becomes difficult. um, so then I decided that I'll just move back to Pakistan. um, and 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 in parallel I actually applied for my permanent residency, as I now had enough points to be eligible to apply. So that 1 year of local work experience was my make or break. So it gave me enough points so I could apply. Um, so and also because I had already got, so I also got my degree and my work experience assessed with a regulatory body in Australia called Engineers Australia. So both my degree and work experience is now assessed, and it really helped in proving that the points that I was claiming for PR eligibility was valid. So that really helped. um, and then I think it took about 1.5 years to get my permanent residency, and that was offshore permanent residency. So now I'm already in Pakistan while I've applied for this. Um, and I then got a job there in Pakistan in engineering. So which sort of continued my work experience, and that was really important, as I didn't want to have a gap in between. It just doesn't look good on a resume. That's what I thought. Um, so now that I had my permanent residency, I started preparing to leave Pakistan, and then I reached out to my old companies in Australia and a few more places, before I left Pakistan, and because I had already made contacts in the Australian market. So the time before moving. I think I'm taking too much time, isn't it? So I should wrap.
No, that's okay.
So
You're right,
the
by all
time,
means.
yeah, just want to add one more thing. Just the time before I moved, I looked at so when I moved back to Australia, I looked at accommodation and I prearranged all of that, so I had a place to go when I arrived. And I didn't want to bother my family friends again, right? So and then because I had a good amount of work experience built up, so I was lucky to get a job pretty quickly when I moved back to Australia. And my journey's been continuing ever since. So yeah.
Thanks very much, Shezad. You used the word luck quite a bit in
Yeah.
your answer to that particular question, but I wouldn't attribute a lot of what you said to luck. I would attribute it to hard work and perseverance. So you need to give yourself a little bit more credit than that. Um, and the other thing that I really liked is what you said was about experience, that, irrespective of the field, you had local experience and the skills that I'm sure you would have developed in that job, even though it was just in a restaurant, the communication skills and so on and so forth that you developed, I'm sure would have helped you along the journey as well.
Yes.
And the third point that I really liked that was about the networking, that you said that you had worked in Australia a little while, you had developed some connections and you remained in touch with them, and that was a way that you found a job when you sort of were looking to come back to Australia when you had your permanent
Yeah.
residency. So that was really some really good points that you had, just to sort of summarize. And what about yourself, Senna? What about your journey?
So I started something similar to what Shoaib expressed initially, like all the wrong ideas in the head. I was comparing when I was coming to Australia that this place could be like United States of America or Canada or UK, and things that we've heard from people from there, because there's a lot of Pakistani community in all these places, and when you get to Australia, you probably will get something around. But the only lucky thing that I would say that I came along with my husband, so I wasn't alone. The place that I arrived, of course, I've been told by the consultant that this is the place you are going to, and I said okay, because I was just so desperate to come out of Pakistan. So I just said, all right, I'll get there. And we got there. And of course, there were quite a lot of families living in two-bedroom apartments. So we decided to then stay there for a week or two. And then we decided to move on. So there was time that I have to, I mean, my husband has to stay in a garage during the chill time of, Melbourne weather for almost 3 months while we were looking for an accommodation. And interestingly, as many of you have mentioned as well here today, uh, it does make a big difference if you don't have any context freehand. So even though if you apply for a rental property, even if you're going for a job, you always need references. So of course, coming new to Australia, I didn't know anyone. So that was the hurdle, the struggle to start with. The other biggest hurdle for me, I would say, was that um, my and my husband family were quite reliant on our income. So we were the main earners for my family, my husband's family. So we had very limited finance when we came here, keeping in mind that after 3 months' time, we have to start supporting our families. So we left some money for them to survive for 3 months, and then we had $1,800 in our hand to say, all right, 3 months we will try to adjust ourselves, find job, start earning, and start supporting them as well as ourselves here. And when you come on student visa, after 6 months, you have to pay your next 6 months fee as well. So there's a lot of pressure that we had at that time. Interestingly, my husband's background is in hospitality, so he is a professional chef. He was lucky enough in a month time he got a job. He was working, even though I was more confident that I've got more fluency speaking so I would be able to find a job somewhere in store. Guess what? I was constantly being denied from everywhere that I could think of. And I had to just continue with my persistence, thinking that the time will come. After the constant effort, 6 months, I found a job in the outbound calls. And again, outbound calls, even though due to fluency, I got that work, it's quite hard to work in the environment, which is very new. So there was a cultural shock. When you would call people, they will abuse you, they will use, rude language. You have to deal with that. We are not used to that when we come from Pakistan. So I have to basically build a lot of resilience. It actually gave me a lot of resilience while working in that environment. And then finally, I was lucky to move into then admin role. I knew the time when I was applying for admin that I didn't had any admin background. So while I was working in the customer services, I started looking in what type of jobs are available. So we usually, look into the job options in the seek.com. So this is one of the website you guys can look into as well to see what is the current trend in specific field. So I started looking into that, and I saw there is a lot of work available as a receptionist, as the admin person. So I thought, look, now I have to start looking into my resume and start preparing my resume in a way based on the qualities they are looking for. So I looked at 5 6 different types of job, and I prepared my resumes. I reflected my skills. Though I was a nurse, I have not worked in the admin or customer services. I started to build the link between my skills that I've attained in Pakistan, and I have started linking it to the positions that I was applying for. Then I started making some friends and started talking to them and saying, would you be my referee if I have to apply? And that's how pretty much it started for me. I stepped into the professional environment. I started working in a big company, electricity company, in an admin position. And then I got my nursing registration. So I then started working in my actual field. But some of the issues that are very common, and many people, because I have then called my family here as well, so they all came on student visa after me. The biggest issue that we come across is the finance, that whether you do have enough finances, are you practically ready, mentally ready, that you can meet the requirements? And if not, then you have to build that resilience. We had no one to rely on back home. It was us. They were relying on us, so we had a lot of pressure. So of course we were lucky that I didn't have to work any layman job, and my husband found the job quite easily. But be prepared that you have to work whatever is available Secondly, fees. That is something that you need to consider. Of course, you're coming to a country. If you're coming on a student visa, you have to be prepared that after 6 months you will have to pay. And unlike, if you are not citizen or not permanent resident, you're actually paying the full fee, and you only have to work 20 hours depending on which qualification you are coming in. So that also places a lot of limitations. Further, if you've got family responsibilities, then you have to keep the expectations realistic. Family's expectations realistic, because like when I came, I was just desperate to come to Australia because I wanted to come out. And I was thinking this place would be like United States or Canada. I will start making money, and I will start sending money. But that's not the reality. So family needs to keep this very realistic for their children's, for their family who's coming to Australia. So that's pretty much the difficulties that I faced. But I must say also that after doing all that hard work and all the struggle, I was able to then support our other siblings to come here. So luckily, I've got three siblings who have then came on student visa. They are now settled here as well. So it's a long journey. You get there. You need to build a lot of resilience, hard work, persistence. They're the key, and we all get there. We all are settled. We all are doing well. So I guess if you guys are planning, just keep those things in mind, and you will be all right.
Thanks very much, Zenab. You spoke a lot about perseverance again, which was a key message that was consistent across all four speakers, and to continue persevering and sort of going towards the end goal. It's very important that you sort of discussed about finances as well. We spoke about, specifically Anish spoke about this at the last webinar, knowing that this is specific costs of living in a particular in Australia and New Zealand. So important to do research. And I think, Shahzad mentioned this a couple of times, but research is so important to do beforehand. So yeah, thank you so much. And Shanul, I'll hand it over back to you for the next question.
So yes, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, your struggles that you went through, and also for sharing with us your strategies, how you overcame those struggles and those challenges. So the next question is quite an interesting one, and it's very much related to your journey again. So hypothetically, if you were to do it all over again, what would you do differently then? This time we're going to start with Shoaib.
Okay, so you can imagine my first one would be, of course, do a lot of research, and make sure you, especially the finance part is so true. Get your finance, do exactly calculation, how much you can do, how much you cannot. The fact is that we are coming from a third world country, so we will never be able to meet all the finances, like paying 2 years full fees and all that stuff, managing and sustaining yourself. But one thing I noticed is that if somebody can look after your fees with 20 hours a week, 20 hours per week, you can get enough money to be able to get some money so you can survive day to day. I'm not saying that you can survive fully, but it will support you from your day-to-day expenses. The other thing is that safety, and so as a student, you are most vulnerable here. So safety and security is very important. You have to be constantly vigilant around your surroundings. So you have to know, you have to make sure that you are safe every time, because you're the most vulnerable here on a student visa from every aspect. So you have to be very careful. Example, if you're doing an Uber driving here, make sure that you have an in-car camera for yourself. So nobody can give you a wrong claim on you because you have some evidence. So these are the tiny things, but it matters a lot. The other thing is the aspect of the regional area. So you will see that regional areas has a lot more potential than the main cities. So explore the region. Don't be resistant that I just want to be close to Jamaat Khane. Yes, you can go to Jamaat Khane, maybe once a month or once a year, but the important piece of the regional areas has a lot more opportunity in terms of able to go to your for your migration path. But regional have a lot more opportunity. Again, it has a downside that you won't get a much job opportunity there, but when it comes to residency and those sides, it does have a lot more opportunity there. Local experience. So local experience is so important. And like I said earlier, that you go to anybody, it's like you do have a local experience or not. There are some tricks, there are some ways which you can work around to go through that local experience issue. right? One of the class example which Zainab mentioned is the skill set. So in your resume, you can say that, hey, it's not about I'm coming from a nursing and I can't do admin. It's more about the skill set which I have. You need it for the admin. So here, the perception or the how the employer look here is very different. They look about skill set and what you bring on board, and less more about the traditional way which we see back home in Pakistan. And I can go on for like another 3 hours. So I'll let other get the opportunity to continue, please.
Right. Thank you so much, Shoaib, for sharing your insights with us. I believe that you have in depth talked about again research in various areas, of course, in terms of financing, safety, security areas where there are opportunities, and of course to do further research on the skill set as well, so that people can, of course, survive as well as in thrive in such scenarios as well. So we're gonna move next to Shazad. What are your thoughts on this?
Shanil, well, I never want to do it again for sure. I think once in a lifetime is more than enough. um, Look, moving and settling abroad, sorry, moving and settling abroad is always challenging, right? So there is no shortcut or an easy way out, well, at least in my opinion. But just for argument's sake, the thing I would do differently, is to give my younger self, the time when I was about to graduate, that look, hey man, there's no shame in doing any kind of work. So, but of course, it would need to be ethical. Um, but if I understood this before, I might have saved some time in my journey.
Right. I think this is very important again because a lot of times, of course, the culture that we live here in Pakistan and the culture of Australia is completely different. So we again, as you mentioned, we have to be very mindful of the culture, and then again, not being shameful of the work there. Zainab, what would you do differently if you were to do it all over again?
Look, the first thing that I did wrong was I was comparing Australia with other popular countries like USA, Canada. So, of course, not to compare and do your own research. I was quite desperate. I did not do my research. But saying that, even though if you don't do anything and if you end up here, if you just continue to keep your faith, your hard work, and persistence, I think it will be all right. We all have come through that journey. None of us will forget this because it has left a lot of bread marks on us, but it has also taught us a lot of things, a lot of skills that we all carry today actually has come from that tough time. So we have learned a lot. So I take it as a positive journey, and I think anyone can do it if I've done it.
Right. Thank you so much, Zainab. We're gonna move to Hussein then. What would you do differently, Hussein?
I agree with all other speakers that yes, it's a lifetime experience, and if I would repeat the same thing, I would do two things. One is your expectations. You don't like when you move to a new country, don't expect too much, and definitely when you're coming from a Pakistan or India or subcontinent area, you don't have those expectations. Like you don't want to do some blue collar job and all these things. So I would say that no doubt you aim for high expectation, but you should understand your reality, your situation, and you adapt yourself by that situation, and you work towards your goal and objective.
Right. Thank you so much, Hassan. I believe that all of you again have touched upon very, very important aspects of um, living in Australia and New Zealand, which is again doing as much research as possible. And then again, perseverance and persistence and resilience is the key, of course, for everyone who is thinking to move abroad. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to pass it over to Nazim for the next question then.
Thanks very much, Anil. So the next question is, I think you sort of answered this already, but through your last question. But what advice or words of wisdom would you like to impart onto prospective international students or migrating families who are looking to come to Australia and New Zealand, or even, in fact, it could just be any country really, because it sounds like the migration part is a struggle, irrespective of which country you may go to. We'll start with Shazad first.
Hmm. Look, I would really emphasize on, doing lots and lots of research. And yes, the end result is not necessarily in our hands, but at least, with research, we are greatly increasing our chances of success, right? And that's what we can do. And the other thing I would say is that, never shy away from hard work.
Thanks very much, Shazad. What about yourself, Stand?
I think everybody has pretty much said, and I'm just going to mirror the same aspect. Do your research, come prepared, build some resilience while you're there. And I think if you could do something, start looking into your own skills that you can explore while you're in Pakistan. Start translating it into various resumes, start looking into the job opportunities, looking to seek .com to see what options are available. So just come mentally prepared when you're coming here.
Thanks very much, Senab. What about yourself, Hussein?
I would say that yes, you have to be clear in your objective, why you're moving abroad, what's your objective, and then do research first, detailed research. Not like that. Okay, this my friend is going, so let me just follow him. So yes, do your research, and once you're your contact with those who are already settled here, and understand their journey and how they are settling in abroad. And once you set up your mind and you moved here, I just say don't never go into isolation. Always be in touch with your community or whoever you feel confident in discussing your things with and your well wishers. So just a quick advice that don't go into isolation. It will not work for you. That's it.
Thanks very much. And Shoaib?
Like I said, for me, I can go for 4 hour story here, but I can quickly give you a few things. See, one thing is very important is that don't take your attendance lightly. I've seen many students going into this legal issue because they didn't do the full attendance, and your college do report on your attendance. So don't take that lightly. Other thing is that friends company. I can tell you from my experience that your success of settling here is highly dependent on the company which you bring in. Your friends company is so important. Remember, you're in Pakistan and coming here, you have exposed to anything from clubbing to drinking to drugs to everything is there. You have to be very careful on which company you're going to. So your company is so important. It's directly dependent on how successful you will be. The other thing is that the IELTS or now it's PTE. Start going into the full English mode back home. Start listening to English song, BBC, radio, full burger boy. So go on full English starting from back home. The other thing is that degree. So I know this diploma do cost you do cost you less. But remember, the degree which you take, which you get it, can go anywhere. So you have an international degree coming from Australia. You can get settled to Canada, to US, to UK, to any part of the Western country. So don't think that degree in Australia. If you have an Australian degree, you can go any part of the Western world. So you will benefit regardless. And the other thing is that go where the opportunity is. Don't just focus on Jamaat Khana is in Melbourne or Jamaat Khana is in Perth. I can only go around that. No, go anywhere where the opportunity takes you. That will be the defining factor for your success. And again, like I said, there's so many wisdoms, but you can connect me anytime.
Thanks very much, Shoaib. So a lot of key messages there. I think consistently we saw research was one, and doing a thorough doing research thoroughly, like as much as you can, and then of course developing skills and networking and finding people who will be able to assist you And as I said at the previous webinars, we do have the Career Horizons guidance and mentoring program in the first webinar and in the second webinar, which Anish had brought up, that we can connect you with Ismailis in Australia and New Zealand, so that you're not feeling alone. So please do reach out to us. The email address, which will probably pop down on the bottom of the screen, is careerhorizons@anzni.org. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. And Shanil, I think we've just lost Shanil for a second, but that's okay. Shanil, you're back.
I'm sorry. I think the internet has been acting weird today. Um, all right. So just wanted to say that we're going to share an evaluation form in the chat box. So I would request to everyone who is watching us today, right now, live, kindly fill that evaluation form out, because it's going to help us in our future webinars as well. And we could, of course, then understand the needs and the requirements of our audience as well. We have one question which is very specific to CA jobs and the scope of CA firm or industry in New Zealand. I'll read that question out, and then perhaps Hussein would be able to answer that question, but other speakers feel free to jump in as well. So the question is that, is it worth to pursue CA jobs in firm or industry in New Zealand in terms of money and living? Or you can complete it in Pakistan and then move to Middle East?
So I will answer like this: that what your ultimate goal is money, or if you move to Middle East, you might not be able to get a passport. But if you're moving to Western world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, USA, UK, the ultimate goal is to get the passport as well, and the life as well. So this is the main difference working in Middle East. No doubt you will make money. You will close to Pakistan, definitely. But the ultimate is when you have kids, what's your ultimate goal is? Are you planning to stay longer, and you want to call that home country or not? So that is the main difference. And definitely, like if you're a CA and if you finish your CA and you move to New Zealand, definitely it is not easy to get a job here, because you have to finish the courses here. But if you're a CA already and you move to Middle East, you easily get a job. So that's, you need to understand and you need to figure out that what is your ultimate goal is. If your ultimate goal is money, then easy money, yes, Middle East. But if you want a good living standards and you want to move with your whole family, where you can say that I call it my home, then yes, move to Western world where you get the passport. And I believe that once you get the passport, you go back to Middle East and you can make more money than on a Pakistani or on third world country passport.
Right. Thank you so much for that. So, anyone else who would like to speak on this, if we could just generalize it as well, that what are job prospects generally in New Zealand and in Australia in terms of earning or in terms of accommodation when we compare it to Middle East or in Pakistan? So, Shahzad, would you like to add something?
Well, I actually have no idea about the Middle East, so I can't really comment on that.
Right, right. Zainab, Shoaib.
I think I mirror my comments to what Hussein said. Again, from nursing perspective, regardless of wherever you go, the jobs will be there. You'll find a job as a nurse. But at the end of the day, what is your goal? If you want to settle your family, if you want to make that place your home, then that's what you need to explore. So I totally mirror that.
Right. Shoaib, would you like to add something?
I'll just add it not from Middle East perspective, but from Australia New Zealand perspective, especially from the IT point of view. The fact is that the IT industry exists in both countries. I have few team members who work in my team in Australia, and one feedback is that in New Zealand, yes, you will find the IT jobs, but it depends that how much you want to move from one company to another company. So in terms of the job pool is bigger in Australia compared to New Zealand. Having said that, New Zealand lifestyle is a very different lifestyle than Australia. It's more relaxed than Australia, based on what I understand and what I know. It's a totally different lifestyle. From the IT industry perspective, the job pool varies. From Australia, you will find more options. In New Zealand, based on the feedback I got or the team members I work with in my team, it varies.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Nazim, would you like to address the second question, please?
Yeah, sure. So the second question is the study gap accepted in Australia or New Zealand if you're applying for a student visa? Now, I'm assuming that that is a high school student who has just potentially finished high school, and as they're sort of coming to do their bachelor's or maybe a diploma in Australia or New Zealand, is that gap accepted? Are there any difficulties that you may, I'm assuming it's difficulties that you may face? If we want to start off with Shehzad first.
Well, I don't really think that will be a problem, but I can't say for sure. Yeah.
So just a tweak to the question, it's not so much after high school, it's after a master's.
Yeah,
Can I comment
maybe
on?
someone who's done the masters could put light on that.
Yeah. See, one thing is that okay. Now there's a gap. What your point is very important. So see, there's a gap. So let's say one thing: do people ask that what you were doing during that time? So you need to know the story. So example, let's say I've taken I finished my bachelor's, I finished a master's, I took 1 year break. It's very important that you need to have a story what you did in 1 year, right? Whether you were looking for jobs, or you went for world travel, or you were doing some other side courses, or you were doing some internship. That story needs to be there. That the reason needs to be there. Why that was 1 year was there. I mean, the reality is they're going to ask that what you were doing twiddling thumbs for 1 year. It doesn't make sense. So you'll be doing something, right? And you need to have that that story should be there, exactly what you were doing in that 1 year. It's unrealistic that somebody is off for 1 year and doing nothing. So that sounds very suspicious. So you need to have your story ready, that what you actually did in 1 year. Whether you did on world tour, totally fine. People do that. In here, it's very common. But you need to know, you need to tell exactly what you were doing in that 1 year, or whatever the gap is.
Thanks very much, Shoaib. I think you're on the money. I think the question was around. They've said that they've taken a potential gap between a master's and thinking of doing a PhD, and they've said that they've been working for those years and now looking to pursue further studies. So maybe Zainab, you'd like to comment on that, because you're currently in that sort of direction. Exactly in that direction, you've done a master's and then
Yeah.
pursuing a PhD.
I think it's very common, many people take a gap in between masters and doing PhD because PhD is a huge commitment to pursue. And as Shoaib mentioned, it's about explaining what you've been doing during that time. So I believe that Leila has mentioned that she's working. So that's fantastic that you've got a reason. You've been working. You're keeping yourself engaged. Now, if you want to come and do PhD, then it has to be something in line with what your previous qualifications were or what you've been working. Suddenly, if you will say, I want to do PhD, but in vet or studying animals, but you've been working in a very different field, it actually make them think that there is a purpose behind that or not. So yeah, so I can see that there is a long gap, and I think so. What happens is when we do apply for any qualification, and it contains the gap. The things that they look into is your resume and your SOP. If I'm saying it correctly, I think it's the statement of purpose that you have to write, and you have to basically explain what you've been doing and why now you want to do that qualification, or why you cannot do that qualification in Pakistan and you want to come and do that qualification in Australia. So if you could explain that well, there shouldn't be any problem. It needs to be authentic. and it needs to be linked to your previous experience or the current experience that you are undertaking and your master's, so your previous education.
Thanks very much, Zainab. Hussein, do you have anything else to add to that?
I agree with Zainab and Shuhaib. Basically, you just have to tell the story that why you took that break. So if you can easily explain that story, everyone can accept that. That's it.
Cool. Thanks very much, Hussein. I'll pass the baton back to Shanil.
All right, so the next question is about scholarships. If there are any scholarships, and again, we can divide it up uh, into bachelor's, master's, and PhD. This is something, again, we did discuss briefly in our first webinar. Um, but I would like to know if you are aware of any and if you like to share those scholarships with us. So maybe you can divide it up between bachelor's, master's, and PhD, since Zainab here is doing her PhD. Um, so we're going to start with Shazad.
Yeah, look, so yeah, as Shanil said that we did cover the scholarships in the first webinar, and if you got a chance to get your hands on a copy of the slides, so the slides actually do list quite a few links to the various scholarships that are available, so you can have a look. But in specific ones, so I'm not quite sure on that.
All right, all right. Zainab, would you like to share your experience, or maybe scholarships that you may be aware of, especially
Look,
bachelor and master?
yeah. I'm only aware of for the domestic students. So any university that you would join, the domestic students would be able to access some level of scholarship from the university itself. And there are certain regulatory bodies who also offer, or unions who offers this scholarship. But that's pretty much for domestic students. I'm not aware of the international student scholarships. If that's the question is, I'm sorry.
I can
All right.
add one here is that
Mm-hmm.
I think OSET, we all know about OSET. So OSET do offer the scholarship. But keep in mind that any scholarship which organization like OSET or USAID, when they offer that scholarship, their intention is that the person who they sponsor, they will go back to their country and they will contribute back to their country. So keep that in mind that before you take any of these, funding from these, USAID or OSAID or any of those organizations, the aim of them for them is not that you go there and you settle there. The aim of their scholarship is that you come, you get yourself qualified, and you go back to the origin country and contribute to them. So just be mindful of when you pick that scholarship, what are their main requirements.
Right, right. Of course, again, research plays an important part in determining what career you want to choose and what kind of scholarships you want to commit to.
And you can
Hussein, would
see
you
I
like
did
to
my
add something?
research. You can see I did my research after coming to Australia.
So, Shanil, I really don't know about this question, so I would not be able to answer that. For especially in CA, I don't think so. There's any scholarship available for any international student. I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, I'm not qualified enough to answer that.
So,
All right, all right. So of course, everyone who is watching us right now and who wants to know more about scholarships, they can revisit the webinar one. It's on the YouTube as well, and they can, of course,
we just lost Shana, though. I'll just finish off what he was trying to say is that you can always request a copy of the slides from us as well. Just email us at the careerhorizons@anzni.org email address. And just to add to what everyone has already sort of said, but in the first webinar, we did discuss about scholarship opportunities that, when it comes to undergraduate opportunities, they are highly competitive and very limited in numbers. And the same goes for postgraduate coursework. But when you're looking to do a postgraduate research degree, such as a PhD, there are, in fact, many opportunities that are available for international students. So just a couple of things just to be mindful of. And again, if you would like a copy of those slides, the email address is just down the bottom of your screen. So please do feel free to reach out to us and we can send you a copy of the slides so that you can have a look at your own leisure.
Right. So now we're running short on time, so I believe we would like to conclude our webinar as well. For the conclusion bit, any final remarks, Shazad, that you want to share with us?
Um, Look, so, as final remarks, I just want to wish everyone all the best in their journey, and I hope that you have success in achieving whatever you're looking for. That's the only thing I would like to say.
Right. Zainab, any final remarks?
I think we have talked a lot about the resilience and the research and everything else. But I guess if anybody wants to know more about nursing or if I could be of any help, I guess if they can get in touch with you guys and if you can put the reference through, I'm more than happy to assist and support where I can.
Right. Of course, the email addresses have been shared with our audience, and everyone can also see the email addresses of Pakistan Khan Education Board and Khan Education Board right below their screen. So feel free to contact anyone. Of course, we are always here to help you out if there are any confusions or if you want any kind of help as well. Um, Nazim, do you want to carry forward?
Yep. So Hussein, any your final remarks for the Jamaat?
I just say I wish everyone best luck for their research, for their goal and objective. And if I can be any help, they can get in touch with you guys, and I can help whatever in my capacity I can help you guys.
Thanks very much, Hussein. And Shoaib, final remarks from your end?
Of course, like everybody said, always there to help in any way. Please connect. And one thing is, it's a once in a lifetime experience. So don't be afraid. Take a leap of faith. If I can do it, then anybody can do it. Good luck.
Thanks very much, Shoaib. Thanks everyone for again agreeing to help out to provide one-on-one support. Again, I'll just reiterate what we've been saying throughout the entire webinar is that feel free to reach out to us if you would like to be connected with Jamaati members in areas or fields that you're looking to pursue, and we'll gladly. We've already got 4 volunteers who have offered their time to assist you. So please feel free to reach out, and we can connect you with the appropriate Jamaati member.
Right. Also, a reminder to everyone, if you haven't filled out the form yet, kindly do so. It's going to be very helpful for all of us in the future webinars. And with this, we come to the conclusion to our third and the final webinar of the Australian and New Zealand Study Abroad a Career Guidance series. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers that have joined us today for the webinar, and also all the AKEB members for Australia and the New Zealand and Pakistan as well, who were involved in delivering this webinar series and who gave their time and knowledge as well in making sure that this the idea, the career guidance spread across to our further Jamaat and to the audience as well. So thank you so much for your time. And again, if you have any questions, if you have any confusions, if you want to know more about the career guidance, more about AKEB and the role, so feel free to contact anyone. And from the ANZ, AKEB, or from Pakistan AKEB, the email addresses are right below your screen. Thank you so much. Stay connected. Next, we'll be coming up with some exciting new webinars in the coming few months. So stay tuned to us. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.